Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. Kathos Veronis stood motionless in the center of the teeming night market of Mandador, eyes closed under his hood, a statue in a river of chaos. The fifth planet of the Aurelian system was notorious for its markets, and notorious for the dangers that lurked within them. A three-horned Zorgan merchant crashed into Kai's shoulder, spilling bioluminescent fruits across the cobbled street. "Watch it, off-worlder," the Zorgan bellowed, his cranial spikes flaring with anger. Kai didn't move, didn't even flinch. "Did you hear me, you stone-faced human?" The merchant grabbed Kai's cloak. Beneath the hood, Kai continued his meditation, focusing on the weight of the ancient blade strapped to his back. It pulsed gently against his spine, a reminder of its constant presence. "Kai, there's that merchant again," Ragnar's voice resonated inside Kai's head. "Want me to give him a little scare? Just a tiny vibration to make his tentacles curl?" "No," Kai thought back, maintaining his perfect stillness. "The point is control, focus, discipline." "Boring," Ragnar replied. "We've been standing here for 47 minutes. Your legs must be cramping by now." A group of shrieking children darted around Kai, one of them actually climbing halfway up his leg before being yanked away by a parent. Kai's expression never changed. 3, 2, 1. Ragnar counted down. "And we're done," Kai muttered, opening his eyes just as the market's central chronometer chimed the 11th hour. The world rushed back in, the smells of fried kelp and exotic spices, the buzz of 1,000 conversations in 50 languages, the ozone tang of hovering neon signs. Kai rolled his shoulders, loosening muscles that had been locked in perfect stillness for nearly an hour. "Finally, now can we please get something to eat? You promised me blood sap noodles." Kai was about to respond when a flash of silver caught his eye above the crowd. Not silver, silver hair. "Something more interesting just came up," Kai murmured, watching as a tall figure with violet skin vaulted over a merchant's stall, her long silver hair streaming behind her like a comet's tail. She was being pursued. 4 figures in heavy tactical armor bearing the unmistakable blue hexagon sigil of Cosmtech Corporation. They moved with the efficient, coordinated precision that only came from extensive military training. "Those are H6 combat suits," Ragnar observed. "Latest model, self-healing exoskeleton frameworks with integrated shield generators. Pricey." "Whoever she is, she's important," Kai replied silently, watching as the violet-skinned woman darted between stalls, knocking over displays to slow her pursuers. Even from this distance he could see her features clearly. High cheekbones, eyes the color of emeralds, full lips currently twisted in a grimace of exertion. Her combat suit was clearly expensive, form-fitting black material with iridescent purple accents, though a tear in the side revealed flesh the color of twilight. Blood, darker purple than her skin, trickled from the wound. "Are we going to help her?" Ragnar asked, a hint of eagerness in his mental voice. "We're going to watch," Kai replied, pulling his hood lower and melting into the crowd, moving parallel to the chase. "For now." The woman was good. She moved with the grace of someone who had received extensive combat training. But the pursuers were better. They were hurting her, Kai realized, driving her exactly where they wanted her to go. The chase led away from the main thoroughfare, down increasingly narrow passageways. The woman turned sharply into a darkened alley. "Amateur move," Ragnar commented as Kai silently scaled a nearby wall, gaining a vantage point on the unfolding scene. 50 credits says it's a dead end. From his perch, Kai saw the woman's shoulders slump as she reached the brick wall at the alley's end. She whirled around to face her pursuers, reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. They must have disarmed her earlier. "Elva de Mandador," the lead pursuer called out, voice metallic through his helmet speaker. You've led us on quite a chase." "Demandador?" Ragnar's voice held surprise. "The royal family? Kai, that's the crown princess of this entire system." Kai narrowed his eyes, studying the cornered woman more carefully. He'd heard stories about the three princesses of Mandador, daughters of the dying queen, heirs to the matriarchal throne that controlled the richest resource deposits in this sector of the galaxy. "The chase ends here, princess," another pursuer said, drawing an energy blade that hummed with lethal intent. "Cosmtech sends its regards." The princess, Elva, backed against the wall, her green eyes flashing with defiance. "Cosmtech will never get control of Mandador's crystal fields. My sisters will—" "Your sisters will join you soon enough," the lead pursuer cut her off. "Nothing personal, princess, just business." "Well, are we going to do something heroic or just watch?" Ragnar prodded impatiently. Instead of answering, Kai dropped silently from his perch, landing in the shadows between the princess and her would-be executioners. He leaned casually against the alley wall, arms crossed over his chest. "Problems?" he asked lazily. All 5 people in the alley jerked in surprise. The princess's emerald eyes widened while the lead pursuer recovered quickly, turning his weapon toward Kai. "Hey, buddy," he growled. "Walk away if you want to keep breathing. This doesn't concern you." Kai didn't move, his face obscured by his hood. Curious thing to say to someone who's just trying to help. The princess pressed herself against the wall, her breathing ragged. You'll help me." Hope tinged with suspicion colored her voice. One of the pursuers laughed, the sound distorted through his helmet. "4 of us, 1 of you, and we're wearing military-grade combat suits. How exactly do you plan to help?" Kai slowly pushed back his hood, revealing angular features, eyes gray as a winter storm, and a half-smile that never quite reached those eyes. A thin scar bisected his left eyebrow. "By asking politely for you to leave the lady alone," he suggested with mock innocence. The 4 armored figures exchanged glances, then burst into harsh laughter. "I take it that's a no," Kai sighed. "Pity." He straightened from the wall, stretching his neck from side to side with audible cracks. "Last chance," the leader said, activating his energy blade. The other 3 followed suit, the alley now bathed in the crimson glow of their weapons. "Walk away or die with her. Can I please come out now?" Ragnar whined in Kai's mind. "I've been stuck on your back for hours." "You'll kill them for me?" the princess asked, her voice a mix of hope and disbelief. Kai winked at her. "Me? No." With a fluid motion, he reached behind his back and drew forth what appeared to be an ancient, battered sword, the metal blackened with age, the edge seemingly dulled. "But my sword," he added, "might want to stretch his legs." The pursuer stared at the primitive weapon, momentarily stunned before breaking into renewed laughter. "Is he seriously planning to fight us with that relic?" one of them sputtered. "Looks like something from a museum," another added. Kai shrugged. "Funny, but you're not the first to make that mistake." "Oh, please let me at them." Ragnar's excited voice filled Kai's head. "These self-important bucketheads in their fancy suits, I'll show them what real power looks like." "Show off," Kai murmured under his breath, then casually tossed the ancient blade into the air. The sword spun, not as a thrown weapon should, but as if it controlled its own momentum. It traced a perfect arc through the air, picking up speed as it went. 4 simultaneous flashes of light, and the sword returned to Kai's outstretched hand as if drawn by a magnet. "Your move," Kai said with a yawn. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with eerie synchronicity, the 4 helmeted heads of the pursuers slid from their shoulders and thudded to the ground. Their bodies remained standing for a heartbeat longer before collapsing in unison. "Stars above," the princess whispered, her emerald eyes wide as moons. "Not my best work," Ragnar complained. If you'd given me more room to maneuver, I could have done something truly artistic. Kai slid the blade back into its sheath, then extended a hand to the stunned princess. I believe the show's over, Your Highness. She took his hand with surprising strength, her violet skin contrasting sharply with his tanned complexion. Up close, her beauty was even more striking. High cheekbones, full lips, and those remarkable green eyes, now studying him with a mixture of awe and calculation. "How did you do that?" she demanded, glancing at the fallen mercenaries. "That's impossible. No blade can—" "Lucky throw," Kai interrupted with a half-smile. "Right place, right time." "Lucky throw," Ragnar sounded offended. "I calculated 17 variables including atmospheric density to execute that maneuver." Kai ignored him, turning to leave the alley. "Wait!" Elva called out, desperation clear in her voice. "Please, I need your help." Kai paused, not turning around. "I don't do charity work, Princess. I can pay you, whatever you want. Name your price." Kai glanced back over his shoulder. "Some things can't be bought." "Oh, here we go with the mysterious lone warrior routine," Ragnar commented. "You know you're going to help her. You always do this, act all disinterested first, then swoop in to save the day." "Shut up," Kai thought back. "What was that?" Elva asked, stepping closer. "Nothing," Kai replied. "Look, I'm not for hire, not even for royalty." Her eyes narrowed. "Then what would it take? There must be something." Kai chuckled, the sound rusty from disuse. "If you were my wife, that would be different. Family obligation and all that." He meant it as a joke, a ridiculous notion to end the conversation. He was unprepared for her immediate response. "Done," she said firmly. Kai blinked. "What?" "I accept your terms," Elva said, straightening to her full height, nearly as tall as he was. "If marriage is what it takes to secure your protection, then I, Elva de Mandidor, Crown Princess of the Seven Systems, will become your wife." "Did not see that coming," Ragnar laughed in Kai's mind. "You can't be serious," Kai said, genuine surprise breaking through his carefully maintained facade. Elva stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something exotic and floral, undercut with the metallic scent of blood from her wound. "I am entirely serious," she said, her green eyes boring into his. "Those men weren't the first sent to kill me, and they won't be the last. Cosm Tech wants our crystal fields, and they'll eliminate my entire family to get them. I need protection, not just any protection, but someone extraordinary." She gestured to the headless bodies. "You qualify." "This is insane," Kai muttered. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," she countered. "I know you're the most dangerous person I've ever encountered. I know you just saved my life, and I know I'm out of options." An image flashed through Kai's mind, a memory buried deep. A hungry boy sitting alone in the wreckage of a transport hangar. A young girl with violet skin offering him a piece of bread when everyone else walked past. It couldn't be. "What's your answer?" Elva pressed, her voice drawing him back to the present. "Will you accept, or shall I await the next assassination attempt alone?" "Say yes," Ragnar urged. "Do you have any idea how long it's been since we had a real challenge, or a real bed, or decent food?" Kai studied the princess's face, searching for deceit and finding only determination mingled with desperation. He'd spent 15 years wandering the galaxy, taking odd jobs, avoiding attachments. The sword on his back was his only constant companion, his teacher, his conscience, his friend. "If I agree," he said slowly, "what exactly would this arrangement entail?" Relief flooded her features. "Protection. For me and my sisters, against Cosm Tech and anyone else who threatens us. In return, you'll have the title of Royal Consort, access to all the resources of Mandidor, and—" She hesitated, a flash of vulnerability crossing her face. whatever else is customary in such arrangements. Are we seriously considering this? Ragnar asked, excitement clear in his mental voice. We are, Kai admitted silently. Before he could respond aloud, distant shouts echoed from the market, more pursuers, likely alerted when the first team failed to report in. We need to move, Kai said. Decision made. Your Highness, lead the way to somewhere safer. We can discuss the details of our arrangement there. Elva's smile was dazzling, relief and triumph and something more primal that sent an unexpected jolt through Kai's usually disciplined mind. Follow me, husband-to-be, she said, already moving deeper into the shadows of Mandador's labyrinthine back streets. And perhaps you'll tell me the name of the man I just agreed to marry? Kai, he replied, falling into step beside her. Kathos Veronis. And Ragnar, the sword added indignantly in his mind. Don't forget to mention me. Just Kai, he repeated, ignoring the blade's protest. And I have a feeling I'm going to regret this. But as he followed the silver-haired princess through the shadows, Kai couldn't deny the stirring of something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose, perhaps, or something more dangerous still. The royal palace of Mandador loomed against the twilight sky, its crystalline spires catching the last rays of the setting sun. Kai stared at the structure with growing apprehension. He'd spent his life avoiding entanglements, political, emotional, or otherwise. Now he was walking straight into what seemed like all three at once. It's magnificent, Ragnar commented in his mind. I haven't been in a royal palace since before you were born. And how did that visit end? Kai asked silently as they approached the towering gates. With 3 dead monarchs and a civil war, the sword replied cheerfully. But I'm sure this will go much better. Elva moved with renewed confidence as they neared the palace, her regal bearing returning with each step. The wound in her side had stopped bleeding, but her combat suit remained torn and blood-stained. The royal guard won't be pleased to see me in this state, she said, and they certainly won't be pleased to see you. I'm used to not being welcome, Kai replied. The massive gates were guarded by 6 soldiers in gleaming silver armor, each bearing energy spears that hummed with barely contained power. As Elva approached, they snapped to attention, then immediately raised their weapons when they spotted Kai. Princess Elva! The lead guard exclaimed. We've been searching for you since you disappeared from the diplomatic reception. His eyes narrowed at Kai. Who is this person? Lower your weapons, Elva commanded. This man saved my life tonight. He is to be treated as an honored guest. The guards hesitated, spears still leveled at Kai's chest. One of them activated his helmet scanner, running it over Kai's body. He's armed, Your Highness, the guard reported. There's an unregistered weapon on his back. Protocol demands... I said lower your weapons, Elva repeated, her voice hardening. The guard shook his head. Forgive me, Princess, but after the recent attacks, we have strict orders from Captain Jarrex. All unknown individuals must be detained and searched before entering the palace grounds. He gestured to 2 of his men. Seize him and confiscate the weapon. Oh, this should be entertaining, Ragnar chuckled in Kai's mind. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Kai warned mildly as the guards approached. They ignored him, one grasping for his arm while the other reached for the sword strapped to his back. What happened next occurred so quickly that later, when the guards tried to explain it to their superiors, none could agree on the sequence of events. Somehow, in the space of 3 heartbeats, all 6 guards found themselves on the ground. 3 were unconscious, 2 were groaning in pain, and the captain was pinned to the ground with the tip of a blackened blade at his throat. Kai stood over him, expression calm as though he were commenting on the weather. I believe the princess said to lower your weapons. The guard captain's eyes bulged. Impossible, he gasped. No one can move that fast. Actually, that was rather slow by your standards, Ragnar observed. Are you getting soft in your old age? Elva stepped forward, placing a restraining hand on Kai's arm. Please don't kill my guards. Good help is so hard to find these days. Kai noticed a hint of impressed surprise in her eyes, as if she hadn't expected him to be quite so formidable. He withdrew the blade, returning it to its sheath in one fluid motion. As you wish, wife. The guard captain's eyes widened further. Wife? A recent arrangement, Elva said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Now let us pass before my patience wears thinner than it already is. The guards scrambled to their feet, forming a hasty honor corridor. As they passed through, Kai caught snippets of their whispered conversation. Did you see how fast he moved? That sword, it seemed to act on its own. The royal consort? Stars help us all. Inside the palace, the opulence was staggering. Vast hallways lined with artifacts from 100 worlds, hovering light sculptures that changed form as they passed, floors that seemed to be made of liquid crystal that somehow supported their weight. Kai had seen wealth before, but never displayed with such artistic precision. Impressed? Elva asked, noticing his gaze. I've seen better, Kai lied. No, you haven't, Ragnar corrected. They were approaching what appeared to be the central chamber when Kai's steps faltered. A memory crashed into his consciousness with the force of a tidal wave. The boy huddled in the shadow of a ruined transport hangar, stomach cramping with hunger. 3 days since his last meal. The refugee camp on Talaris IV had been bombed again, supplies destroyed or stolen. 8 years old and already familiar with the gnawing emptiness of starvation. A royal procession passed by, Queen Valeris of Mandador on a diplomatic mission to assess the war damage, guards in gleaming armor, hovercars polished to mirror brightness. The refugees pressed forward, hoping for handouts, but were roughly pushed back by the security detail. The boy saw an opportunity, an unattended food cart at the edge of the procession. He darted forward, quick as a shadow, and snatched a single purple fruit before slipping away, but not quick enough. Thief! A guard's voice boomed. Stop him! He ran, heart pounding, the stolen fruit clutched to his chest, a dead end, trapped. The guard raised his energy rifle, face contorted with disgust. Filthy little rat, the guard spat. I'll teach you to steal from a royal procession. The boy closed his eyes, waiting for pain, for death. Stop! A girl's voice, high and clear. What are you doing? The boy opened his eyes to see a young girl with violet skin and silver hair, perhaps 10 years old, standing between him and the guard. Her green eyes flashed with authority despite her youth. Princess Elva, please step aside, the guard said, rifle still raised. This refugee vermin was stealing from the royal supplies. It's a piece of fruit, she replied coldly. Are we so poor that we begrudge a hungry child food? It's the principle, Your Highness. Theft must be... The principle, she cut him off, is that we are here to help these people, not terrorize them. She turned to the boy, her expression softening. Are you hungry? Unable to speak, he nodded. She reached into a pouch at her waist and withdrew not just fruit, but a wrapped package of bread and dried meat. Take this. It's more filling. The guard looked appalled. Princess, you can't just... I can and I will, she said with a certainty far beyond her years. Now leave us. Remarkably, the guard obeyed, retreating with a final glare at the boy. What's your name? The princess asked, handing him the food. Kai, he whispered, hardly believing what was happening. I'm Elva. I'm sorry about your home, Kai. I promise things will get better. Before he could respond, she was called away by an attendant. The last he saw of her was a flash of silver hair as she rejoined the procession. That night, for the first time in days, he went to sleep with a full stomach, the name Elva on his lips. Kai, are you all right? Present-day Elva was looking at him with concern. He blinked, forcing the memory away. Fine. Just remembering something. What? she asked. You gave me food once, he said abruptly. On Talaris 4, during the refugee crisis. Elva stopped walking, staring at him with growing recognition. The boy in the hangar, she whispered, with the stolen my fruit. Her eyes widened. That was you? Well, isn't that a cosmic coincidence? Ragnar commented dryly. Next you'll tell me your long-lost siblings. Shut up, Kai thought back fiercely. You remember me? Elva asked, genuine surprise in her voice. Not many violet-skinned princesses hand out food to starving thieves, Kai replied, uncomfortable with the vulnerability the memory exposed. It was a memorable day. She studied his face as if trying to find traces of that hungry child in the hardened warrior before her. You've come a long way from that hangar. Thanks to Ragnar, he admitted. Ragnar? She asked. Kai hesitated, then placed his hand on the hilt of his sword. My blade. He's more than a weapon. Finally, a proper introduction, Ragnar exulted. Before Elva could inquire further, the massive doors to the central chamber swung open. Two women stood framed in the entrance, both with the same violet skin as Elva, but otherwise strikingly different. The first had hair like living flame, cropped short and wild with eyes to match, burning amber that seemed to glow from within. She wore a black leather combat suit adorned with decorative metal plates, and her posture screamed warrior from 100 paces. A curved energy blade hung at her hip. The second woman was her opposite in every way, long raven hair falling in waves to her waist, eyes of deepest purple, and a flowing gown of some gossamer material that managed to be both elegant and provocative. Where the first woman radiated aggression, this one emanated a sensual confidence that made even Kai's disciplined mind pause. I think I'm in love, Ragnar declared dramatically. Elva, the flame-haired woman exclaimed. Where have you been? The palace has been in chaos since you disappeared from the reception. Her eyes narrowed on Kai. Who's this? My new husband, Elva replied calmly. The silence that followed was absolute. Then both women burst into speech simultaneously. You're what? The warrior woman sputtered. How delightfully scandalous, the raven-haired woman purred. Elva raised her hands. Teia, Rima, meet Kathos Veronis. Kai, these are my sisters, Princess Teia and Princess Rima. Teia, the warrior, circled Kai like a predator assessing prey. You married a human, without consultation, without ceremony. Have you lost your mind, Elva? He saved my life, Elva replied, explaining briefly about the Cosmtech assassins in the marketplace. Rima, meanwhile, had glided closer to Kai, her movements hypnotic. My sister always did have excellent taste, she murmured, her voice like silk. Though, I must say, I'm hurt she didn't share. Share? Kai echoed, suddenly wary. Teia stopped her pacing and exchanged a loaded glance with Rima. Then both sisters turned to Elva. You haven't told him, have you? Teia demanded. Elva winced. I was getting to that part. Told me what? Kai asked, a sinking feeling in his stomach. Rima laughed, a sound like crystal wind chimes. About the law of royal unity, of course. Surely Elva mentioned it before you agreed to this arrangement. What law? Kai's voice had gone dangerously quiet. Teia smirked. The law that states any who marries one royal sister must take all eligible sisters as wives, a precaution against political manipulation through selective marriage. All sisters, Kai repeated slowly. All three of us, Rima confirmed with a smile that could melt steel. Package deal, I'm afraid. Kai turned to Elva, who at least had the decency to look somewhat apologetic. You neglected to mention this detail. There wasn't exactly time for a full briefing on Mandadorian marriage law while we were fleeing assassins, she countered. I really like this planet, Ragnar crowed gleefully. 3 princesses. This is the best day of our lives. This is ridiculous, Kai snapped, forgetting to keep his response mental. I'm not marrying 3 women I just met. Then you're not marrying any of us, Taya said flatly. The law is absolute. Besides, Rima added, trailing a finger along Kai's arm, is it really such a terrible fate? We each have our unique qualities. Kai jerked his arm away, turning back to Elva. What game are you playing? Elva's playful demeanor vanished, replaced by the weight of genuine desperation. No game, Kai. Cosmtech has been trying to overthrow our family for years. They want control of the crystal fields, the largest deposit of quantum processing crystals in the known galaxy. With our mother's illness. She swallowed hard. We're vulnerable. 3 unmarried princesses with no male champion. In the eyes of the Galactic Council, we're ripe for conquest. The Council is archaic and patriarchal, Taya spat, but they control interplanetary law. They refuse to recognize our matriarchal lineage as legitimate without male consorts, Rima explained. Cosmtech has been exploiting this technicality to petition for control of Mandador. And now they've escalated to assassination attempts, Elva finished. Kai paced the chamber, mind racing. So, I'm to be what? A political prop? A figurehead husband to satisfy some outdated legal requirement? And our protector, Elva added. After what I saw in that alley, you're more than capable. They need us, Kai, Ragnar said, his mental voice uncharacteristically serious. And we've been wandering too long without purpose. Before Kai could respond, alarms shrieked through the palace. Red emergency lights bathed the chamber, and a computerized voice announced, "Security breach in sectors 7, 12, and 18. Unknown hostiles have penetrated the perimeter." Taya's hand flew to her weapon. Cosmtech. They're inside the palace. Rima's eyes unfocused briefly, then snapped back to clarity. Many minds. At least 30 attackers. They're after all of us this time. Kai's hand moved to Ragnar's hilt, feeling the familiar surge of power as the sword awakened fully to the prospect of battle. So, Elva said, drawing a concealed energy pistol from beneath a panel in the wall, about that marriage proposal. The doors to the chamber burst open, revealing a squad of heavily armed soldiers bearing the blue hexagon of Cosmtech Corporation. "Decision time, Kai," Elva said, green eyes flashing in the emergency lights. "Are you with us or not?" "Please say yes," Ragnar pleaded. "I've been so bored." Kai drew the ancient blade, which seemed to hum with anticipation in his hand. "I haven't agreed to marry anyone yet," he said, as the soldiers raised their weapons. "But I suppose I can't let them kill you before we finish our discussion." And with that, he launched himself toward the attackers, Ragnar singing through the air with deadly precision. The Cosmtech soldiers hesitated for a fraction of a second, just enough time for Kai to close the distance. Their hesitation proved fatal. Ragnar cut through the first 3 attackers before they could even raise their weapons, not with wild swings or desperate slashes, but with precise, almost surgical movements. Kai's expression remained eerily calm, his breathing steady as if he were taking a leisurely stroll rather than engaging in mortal combat. "Left flank, 3 incoming," Ragnar alerted in Kai's mind. Without looking, Kai extended his arm, allowing Ragnar to guide the movement. The blade sang through the air, severing the neural connectors in the soldiers' armor. They collapsed like puppets with cut strings. "By the stars," Taya whispered, her own weapon half drawn but unused as she watched the display. Elva and Rima had taken defensive positions behind a crystalline column, but they too were transfixed by the methodical destruction before them. Kai moved with inhuman speed and precision, anticipating attacks before they came, countering with devastating efficiency. A Cosmtech commander activated a personal shield, the latest military technology, supposedly impenetrable to conventional weapons. He charged Kai with an arrogant smirk. "May I?" Ragnar asked gleefully. "Be my guest," Kai replied mentally. The blackened blade suddenly glowed with an eerie blue light. When it connected with the shield, instead of bouncing off, it phased through as if the barrier were no more substantial than mist. The commander's expression transformed from confidence to terror in his final moments. Across the chamber, Taya had finally snapped out of her shock and engaged two attackers with her own energy blade. She was skilled, ferocious, and technically brilliant, but still fought with the effort of a mortal warrior. Rima, meanwhile, had locked eyes with a cluster of soldiers who now stood frozen, trapped in whatever mental labyrinth she had conjured for them. Elva had taken a more practical approach, using her energy pistol to pick off attackers with precise shots to vulnerable points in their armor. Within minutes, the battle was over. 30 elite Cosmtech soldiers lay dead or incapacitated, while Kai stood in the center of the carnage without a scratch, not even breathing hard. He wiped Ragnar's blade with mechanical precision and resheathed it. "You didn't even break a sweat," Taya said, approaching cautiously. Blood trickled from a cut on her cheek. "That was quite a performance," Rima added, releasing her mental hold on the few surviving soldiers who collapsed unconscious. Elva holstered her weapon and stepped over fallen bodies to reach Kai. "I've never seen anything like that, not even in the elite royal guard. What are you?" "Just a man," Kai replied, "with a very special sword." "Just a man," Ragnar scoffed in his mind. "A man I spent 15 years turning into the perfect warrior, thank you very much." The mining colony on Drexus 9 was no place for a child, especially not a 10-year-old orphan. But Kai had survived 2 years there already, working the dangerous lower tunnels where his small size allowed him to access narrow veins of valuable ore that adult miners couldn't reach. That particular day, a tunnel collapse had trapped him in a previously unexplored section of the ancient mine. The emergency lights on his helmet flickered weakly as he searched for an escape route. Instead, he found a chamber that shouldn't have existed, a perfectly hexagonal room with walls made of some unknown black metal that absorbed light rather than reflected it. In the center stood a pedestal, and on it, a sword unlike any he'd seen before. Even in the dim light, the blade seemed to drink in the darkness around it. Something compelled him to approach, to reach out. Finally, a voice resonated directly in his mind as his fingers touched the hilt. "Someone interesting." Kai jerked back, but the voice continued. "Oh, don't be alarmed, little one. I've been waiting a very long time for someone worthy. The others who found me, well, they weren't suitable." "Who are you?" Kai whispered into the darkness. "I am Ragnar, forged in the heart of a dying star by a civilization whose name has been forgotten for 10,000 years. I am a weapon, yes, but also so much more. And you, child, have potential." "Potential for what?" "To become something extraordinary, to survive, for starters. There's no other way out of this chamber. The tunnels have completely collapsed." Kai looked around fearfully. "I'll die here?" "Not if you take me with you. I can show you the weak point in the eastern wall. Together, we can escape." Hesitantly, Kai grasped the hilt again. The sword was far too large for his small frame, yet somehow it felt balanced in his hands. "Good," the voice approved. "Now, strike there." A mental image showed him exactly where to aim. With all his strength, Kai swung the blade. Despite its size, it moved as if weightless, connecting with the wall at precisely the right spot. The black metal sheared through solid rock as if it were paper, opening a narrow passage. "See?" Ragnar sounded smug. "Together, we'll do remarkable things." The years that followed were grueling. Ragnar was a demanding teacher, pushing Kai's body to its limits and beyond. Hours of physical training each day, complex combat forms repeated until they became instinct rather than conscious movement. Again, Ragnar would command after Kai had collapsed, exhausted on a remote mountainside on Kaltos III. "Your stance is still 2 centimeters off." "I can't," 16-year-old Kai gasped, muscles burning. "It's impossible." "Your body thinks it's impossible. Your mind believes it's impossible. I know better." And so Kai would rise again, pushing past what he believed were his limits, finding new reserves of strength and endurance he never knew existed. When assassins came for him on Jarvik Prime, mistaking him for someone else, Ragnar guided his movements with telepathic precision, allowing him to defeat 6 trained killers despite being outnumbered. "You see," Ragnar had said afterward, "without me, you'd be dead. Without you, I'd be useless. We need each other." It was true. The sword had become father, teacher, friend, the only constant in a life of perpetual motion. Together they had survived impossible odds, built a reputation that kept most trouble at a distance, and forged a connection deeper than either would care to admit. "Your sword talks to you?" Elva asked, breaking through Kai's memories. They had relocated to a secure chamber deep within the palace after ensuring no more Cosmtech forces remained. The 4 of them sat around a table laden with food and drink, a war council of sorts. "More or less," Kai admitted, seeing no point in hiding it after what they'd witnessed. "Ragnar is sentient. We've been together for 15 years. That explains how you anticipate attacks before they happen," Taya observed. "It's not just skill. You're getting advanced warning." "Among other advantages," Kai conceded. Rima leaned forward, eyes gleaming with interest. "May I?" She extended a hand toward the sword strapped to Kai's back. "Oh yes, please let the gorgeous telepath touch me," Ragnar urged. "Fine," Kai sighed, removing the blade and placing it on the table. Rima's slender fingers hovered over the hilt, not quite touching. Her eyes widened. "Extraordinary. The consciousness within is ancient, powerful." She looked up at Kai. "And utterly devoted to you." "Well, I wouldn't go that far," Ragnar objected. "I'm fond of the boy, but utterly devoted makes me sound like a pet." "We've been through a lot together," Kai said simply. Elva's green eyes studied him with new understanding. "No wonder you work alone. You're never really alone, are you?" Something in her perceptiveness unsettled Kai. Few people had ever looked past his carefully constructed walls so easily. The conversation shifted to strategy, how to counter Cosmtech's increasingly bold moves, how to present their case to the Galactic Council, how to protect the royal family while their mother's health deteriorated. As the night grew late, Taya and Rima excused themselves, leaving Kai alone with Elva. The tension between them, present since their first encounter in the alley, intensified in the quietude. "You should rest," Elva said finally. "I've had guest quarters prepared for you." "I prefer to stay alert," Kai replied. "Cosmtech might try again." "They won't. Not tonight. They'll need to regroup after such losses." She stood and extended her hand. "Come, there's something I want to show you." Curious despite himself, Kai followed her through a series of hidden passages until they reached a chamber unlike any other in the palace. The walls seemed made of living crystal that pulsed with an inner light. In the center stood a shallow pool filled with liquid that shimmered like liquid starlight. "The heart of Mandador," Elva explained. "Few outsiders have ever seen it. It's said the first queen of our world discovered this substance. We call it lumiescence, and through it gained the ability to see beyond the veil of time." "You believe that?" Kai asked skeptically. "I know it's true," she replied. "The gift manifests differently in each royal daughter. Taya channels its energy as fire, Rima as mental power. She approached the pool. For me, it shows glimpses of possible futures. Fascinating, Ragnar commented. The molecular structure of that liquid must be incredibly complex to enable temporal viewing. You want me to look? Kai asked, understanding dawning. I want you to see what I've seen, Elva said. What will happen if Cosmtech succeeds? She took his hand, her skin warm against his, and led him to the pool's edge. As their joined hands touched the surface of the luminescence, the world around them dissolved. A vision engulfed them. Mandador in flames, the crystal field shattered, the palace reduced to rubble. Cosmtech harvesters stripped the land bare while the population toiled in conditions little better than slavery. And 3 bodies displayed prominently on the central plaza, the princesses, executed as examples. The vision shifted, showing another possibility. Mandador thriving, its crystal technology advancing to new heights, bringing prosperity to the entire system. The 3 princesses ruling jointly, with a figure at their side whose face remained in shadow. As suddenly as it began, the vision ended. They stood again beside the pool, but something had changed between them. The political arrangement, the convenient alliance, it had transformed into something more complex. Elva's green eyes met his. Vulnerability and strength intermingled. Now you understand what's at stake. I do, Kai acknowledged, still processing what he'd witnessed. Their proximity, the shared vision, the day's dangers, all combined into a moment of connection neither had anticipated. When Elva leaned forward, Kai didn't pull away. Their kiss was tentative at first, then deepened with unexpected intensity. Well, Ragnar commented dryly, didn't see that coming. But for once, Kai wasn't listening to the sword. Something older than Ragnar's influence, more primal than tactical considerations, guided him now. The realization that perhaps their meeting wasn't coincidence, that the hungry boy and the compassionate princess had been set on a collision course by forces greater than either understood. When they finally separated, Elva touched his face with gentle fingers. The council convenes in 3 days. By then, we must decide if this arrangement becomes real or remains a convenient fiction. And your sisters, Kai asked, reality intruding once more. Are part of the package, she reminded him with a half smile. But that's a complexity for tomorrow. She stepped back. Rest now, Kathos Veronis. You've earned it. As she left him alone in the crystal chamber, Kai found himself at a crossroads more significant than any he'd faced before. For 15 years, his world had consisted of himself and Ragnar, surviving day to day, avoiding attachment, accumulating power, but applying it to no greater purpose. Now, suddenly, he was entangled in royal politics, ancient traditions, and the fate of an entire world. And most unsettling of all, the stirring of emotions he'd long thought excised from his being. Careful, Kai, Ragnar warned, sensing his thoughts. Remember what happened the last time you let someone get close. This is different, Kai replied, though he wasn't entirely convinced. Is it? Or are you just hoping it is? Kai had no answer as he gazed into the luminescent pool, wondering which of the futures he'd glimpsed would come to pass, and what role he would play in shaping it. The glittering spires of the Galactic Concordat loomed before them as their royal transport approached the massive space station that served as the seat of interstellar governance. Suspended between 3 suns in a carefully calculated gravitational balance, the Concordat was both an engineering marvel and a testament to the vanity of those who ruled. Kai stood at the viewport watching the station grow larger. 3 days had passed since the attack on the palace. 3 days of preparation, strategy sessions, and navigating the increasingly complex relationships with the 3 princesses of Mandador. Nervous? Ragnar asked in his mind. Should I be? Kai replied silently. The last time we were at the Concordat, we were escorted out by 12 security drones after that unfortunate incident with the Proximan ambassador. That was 7 years ago, and he deserved it. The transport docked with a gentle shudder. Behind him, Kai heard the rustle of formal garments as the three princesses made final adjustments to their ceremonial attire. "Remember," Elva said, her voice steady despite the stakes, "the council respects only two things, tradition and power. We have the first. You represent the second." Kai turned to face them. The sisters presented a united front in their royal regalia. Elva in silver and purple, Taya in crimson and gold, Rima in midnight blue adorned with stars. They looked every inch the ruling triumvirate they aspired to be, yet the council still deemed them unfit to rule without male validation. "What exactly am I supposed to do in there?" Kai asked. "Stand beside you and look intimidating?" Taya snorted. "If only it were that simple. The council expects our male consort to speak for us in matters of planetary governance." "Archaic, but effective," Rima added. "The Cosmtech representative will attempt to discredit us, claiming we're unfit to manage Mandador's resources. Without a recognized male consort to guide us," Elva finished, "they'll vote to place our world under corporate stewardship, effectively handing it to Cosmtech." Kai straightened his formal coat, black with silver accents that matched Elva's gown, a deliberate visual cue to their relationship. "So I just need to convince a room full of political manipulators that I'm legitimately your consort and capable of guiding you." "While looking intimidating," Taya confirmed with a sharp smile. "That part, at least, shouldn't be difficult," Rima said, her gaze traveling appreciatively over Kai's form. The docking bay doors opened, revealing an honor guard of Concordat officials in pristine white uniforms. Their expressions remained professional, but Kai noted the subtle widening of eyes as they registered his presence beside the princesses. "They recognize you," Ragnar observed with satisfaction. "Your reputation precedes us." "The High Council awaits," announced the lead official, bowing formally. "If you would follow me." The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council stretched upward for what seemed like hundreds of meters, its walls lined with viewing galleries where representatives from 1,000 worlds observed the proceedings below. The floor was a massive circle of polished stone, at the center of which stood the petitioner's platform. Arranged in tiered semicircles around it sat the 27 High Counselors, beings of various species chosen to represent the major power blocks of the galaxy. As the princesses and Kai were announced, a hushed murmur rippled through the observers. Kai kept his face impassive, but his senses, honed by years of surviving in hostile environments, cataloged every exit, every guard position, every potential threat. Directly opposite the petitioner's platform sat a delegation from Cosmtech, led by a sleek human woman with chrome-augmented features and eyes that had been replaced with multi-spectrum scanners. Kai recognized the type, corporate executives who sacrificed their humanity piece by piece for increased efficiency. "The Council recognizes the representatives of Mandador," intoned the central speaker, a tall, willowy being whose species was ancient when humans were still climbing out of trees. "You stand before us to refute Cosmtech Corporation's petition for stewardship of your world's resources. Present your case." Elva stepped forward, her silver hair catching the light. "Honorable Council, we come before you to assert our legitimate and historical right to rule Mandador. For 20 generations, the matrilineal monarchy has guided our world to prosperity and peace. We reject Cosmtech's claims of mismanagement and instability." The Cosmtech executive rose. "Pretty words, Princess, but facts speak louder. Since Queen Valeris fell ill, Mandador's crystal exports have declined by 17%. 3 attempted coups have been suppressed in the past year alone. Your world teeters on the edge of chaos. Attempted coups engineered by Cosmtech agents, Taya countered, fury evident in her amber eyes. A serious accusation, the central speaker noted. Do you have evidence to support this claim? We do, Rima replied, but each time we've submitted evidence, it has mysteriously disappeared from council records. This provoked another murmur from the galleries, louder this time with undertones of scandal. A heavy-set counselor with metallic skin leaned forward. Let us address the fundamental issue. Under Concordat law, Mandador's matriarchal system is recognized only when properly balanced by appropriate male consorts for all eligible royal females. You have repeatedly refused to comply with this requirement. Not refused, Elva corrected. Simply been selective in our choice. She gestured to Kai. We present Kathos Veronis, our chosen consort, who has agreed to the traditional union with all three royal sisters according to Mandadorian law. All eyes turned to Kai. The council chambers fell silent enough to hear the environmental systems cycling air. Kathos Veronis, the central speaker repeated slowly. The mercenary known as the Shadow Blade, the man responsible for the Jarvik Prime incident? Among other accomplishments, Kai responded calmly. The Cosmtech executive had gone very still, her augmented eyes scanning Kai repeatedly. This is a transparent attempt to gain council approval through intimidation. A hired killer cannot serve as a legitimate royal consort. I assure you, Kai said, stepping forward, my commitment to the princesses and to Mandador is genuine. A convenient claim, the executive sneered. Made, no doubt, for considerable compensation. Elva's hand found Kai's, her fingers intertwining with his. Our union is based on mutual respect and shared purpose. Kai has already defended our family against Cosmtech assassins sent to eliminate us before this very hearing. More accusations without proof, the executive dismissed. The council requires more than romantic platitudes to recognize such a unusual arrangement. The central speaker nodded. Cosmtech raises a valid point. Traditional consort status requires demonstrated commitment and capability to govern. Words alone are insufficient. They're stalling, Ragnar warned in Kai's mind. Look at the Cosmtech security detail positioning themselves around the chamber. Kai had already noticed 12 operatives in civilian clothes, moving with the disciplined precision that marked them as military trained. They were establishing fields of fire that would cover the petitioner's platform from multiple angles. An assassination attempt here? Kai thought back. That would be exceptionally bold. Or exceptionally desperate. They know they're losing the legal battle, so they're changing the game. The council debate continued, with various members arguing procedural points while the Cosmtech operatives continued their subtle maneuvering. Rima pressed close to Kai's side. You sense it too, she whispered. Not a question, but a confirmation. They mean to eliminate us before the vote. How many can you incapacitate with your abilities? Kai murmured back. 3, perhaps 4 before the strain becomes too great. Kai gave an imperceptible nod. When it starts, get your sisters behind me. The council's deliberations were interrupted by the arrival of a Cosmtech executive flanked by 4 security personnel in full tactical gear, an unusual sight in the supposedly neutral chamber. What is the meaning of this intrusion? Demanded the central speaker. Security precaution, the executive replied smoothly. We've received intelligence suggesting a possible threat to these proceedings. And there it is, Ragnar said. The pretense they needed. Kai felt the familiar weight of the sword against his back, hidden beneath his formal coat. He'd been forced to conceal it for the council appearance. Weapons were technically forbidden in the chamber, but no security scan had detected Ragnar. The ancient blade had ways of avoiding such mundane measures. The Cosmtech security team spread out, taking positions that effectively blocked the main exit. The operatives in the gallery began to move with more purpose. The central speaker raised a hand for silence. "We will vote now on Cosmtech's petition for stewardship of Mandador. All in favor?" "I object," Kai interrupted, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. All eyes turned to him. "The royal petitioner has no standing to object at this point in the proceedings," the central speaker stated. "I'm not objecting to your vote," Kai clarified. "I'm objecting to being assassinated before it concludes." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. "A ridiculous claim," the Cosmtech executive sputtered. "Is it?" Kai asked mildly. He pointed to 3 specific positions in the gallery. "Armed operatives there, and there. 4 more at the secondary exits, and of course, your security team blocking the main doors." The central speaker raised a hand again. "These are serious accusations. Council security, investigate these claims." "There's no time," Kai said, noting the subtle hand signal from the Cosmtech executive to her operatives. "They're moving now." As if on cue, the operatives in the gallery raised weapons. The security team at the doors began advancing on the platform. "Finally," Ragnar exulted. "Let me out, Kai." With a fluid motion that belied its speed, Kai drew the ancient sword from beneath his coat. The black blade seemed to drink in the light around it, creating a vortex of shadow. "What is the meaning of this?" the central speaker demanded, rising from their seat. "Weapons are forbidden in the council chamber." "So is assassination," Kai replied calmly. The first shots came from the gallery, precision energy weapons designed to leave minimal evidence. They never reached their targets. Ragnar moved with blinding speed, intercepting each beam and absorbing it into the darkness of the blade. The council chamber descended into chaos. Delegates dove for cover as the Cosmtech operatives abandoned subtlety and opened fire from all directions. Kai positioned himself before the 3 princesses, Ragnar a blur of motion around them, creating a defensive perimeter no projectile could penetrate. "Enough!" Kai roared, his voice amplified by some property of Ragnar that made it reverberate through the massive chamber. The sword in his hand pulsed with accumulated energy. Every shot it had absorbed now converted to power. With a single, precise movement, Kai struck the floor of the platform. A shockwave of force erupted outward, knocking every Cosmtech operative off their feet. Their weapons crumbled to dust in their hands, molecular bonds disrupted by Ragnar's energy pulse. In the sudden silence that followed, Kai slowly straightened. "The princesses of Mandador are under my protection," he stated, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "Any further attempts against them will be met with less restraint." The Cosmtech executive stared at him with naked fear. "What are you?" "The legitimate consort to the royal family of Mandador," Kai replied, "as I've been trying to tell you." The central speaker, who had remarkably maintained their composure throughout the attack, spoke into the stunned silence. "The council recognizes the validity of the royal consort's commitment to Mandador's protection." One by one, the council members who had been preparing to vote in Cosmtech's favor reconsidered their positions. Within minutes, the petition for corporate stewardship was unanimously rejected. As Cosmtech's operatives were taken into custody by council security, the political landscape transformed. Representatives who had been avoiding the Mandadorian delegation now approached with congratulations and offers of alliance. The Cosmtech executive was escorted away in restraints, her corporate privileges suspended pending investigation. Elva stepped to Kai's side, her green eyes bright with triumph. "You realize what you've done? You've just reshaped galactic politics with a single strike." "I protected what's mine," Kai replied simply. The return to Mandador was marked by celebration. News of the events at the Galactic Council had spread faster than their ship could travel, and the capital city erupted in festivities as the royal family returned home. In the palace's grand ballroom, beneath floating crystal chandeliers that refracted light in dazzling patterns, the formal announcement of the royal marriages was made. Queen Valeris, frail but determined, made a rare public appearance to bless the unions. Kai stood on the balcony afterward, watching the city celebrations from a distance, Ragnar leaning against the railing beside him in a rare moment of physical manifestation, a shadowy figure visible only to Kai. "Well, you've done it now," the sword observed. "Royal consort to 3 princesses, defender of a planet, political power broker, not bad for a starving orphan." "I never wanted any of this," Kai replied quietly. "Didn't you? I've been in your head for 15 years, Kai. You've always wanted somewhere to belong." Soft footsteps approached, and Ragnar's manifestation faded just as Elva joined Kai at the railing. She had changed from her formal gown into something simpler but no less elegant. "Having second thoughts?" she asked, studying his profile. "Wondering how we got here," he admitted. "From a hungry kid stealing fruit to this," she smiled. "I've often thought about that day. The boy with fierce eyes who wouldn't surrender even when caught. I saw something in you then, something worth saving. And now? Now I see a man who saved us all." She moved closer. "Our children will be formidable, with your strength and our heritage." "Children?" Kai repeated, genuinely startled. A memory surfaced. Kai, at 12, collapsed on a mountainside, his muscles screaming from the training regimen Ragnar had imposed. "I can't do any more," he gasped. "It's too much." "You can and you will," Ragnar's voice replied implacably in his mind. "One day, you'll thank me for this." "If I survive," Kai muttered. "When you survive," Ragnar corrected. "When you have children of your own to train, you'll understand why I push you so hard." "I'll never have children," the boy declared with the certainty of youth. "I'll never be trapped like that." "We'll see," Ragnar had replied, amused. "We'll see." "I told you so," Ragnar's voice echoed smugly in present-day Kai's mind. "Shut up," Kai thought back. "What?" Elva asked, confused by his expression. "Nothing," Kai said quickly. "Just thinking about the future." Taya and Rima joined them on the balcony, completing the circle. The 4 of them stood in silence for a moment, watching the celebration below. "So," Taya said finally, "does this mean you're staying?" "Do I have a choice?" Kai asked, but there was no bitterness in the question. "Always," Elva replied softly. "We would never hold you against your will." Kai looked at each of them in turn. Elva with her quiet strength, Taya with her fierce courage, Rima with her perceptive wisdom. 3 princesses he'd somehow agreed to marry in the span of a few chaotic days, and yet it felt right in a way nothing had before. "I'm staying," he said simply. Rima smiled knowingly. He was always going to stay. I saw it in his mind the moment he entered the palace. "Cheater," Taya accused good-naturedly, elbowing her sister. As the sisters playfully bickered, Kai felt a sense of peace settle over him. The nomadic existence, the constant vigilance, the emotional isolation, all of it could end here if he allowed it. "Don't get too comfortable," Ragnar warned. "We still have enemies." The sword was right, of course. Beyond the city's celebration, beyond even the defeated Cosmtech Corporation, threats remained. And unknown to all of them, on a distant moon, a figure studied reports of the council hearing with burning intensity. "So you found yourself a home at last, Kathos," the figure murmured, fingers tracing Kai's image on the screen. "How convenient for me." The observer's face reflected the screen's glow, features that mirrored Kai's own, but twisted by hatred and enhanced with cybernetic implants where an ancient blade had once taken half his face. "Enjoy your royal wives, brother. I'll see you soon." The blade cuts both ways, dear listener. A marriage of convenience transforms into bonds of destiny. You've witnessed only the first arc of Kai and Ragnar's journey alongside the three princesses of Mandador. Their story, like the ancient sword itself, harbors deeper secrets waiting to be unsheathed. What forged the hatred between brothers? What cosmic forces conspired to reunite a starving boy with the princess who once saved him? And when the full might of Ragnar's power is unleashed, will even the stars themselves tremble? We're just getting started, as Ragnar might say. Return for human, you can't just marry me, my sisters. Demand you take them too, the awakening, where family bonds will be tested, ancient powers will stir, and the true price of belonging will be revealed. Until our blades cross again.